Marketing is one of my favorite things to talk about. We all know that. And in this conversation with Brett, we talked about his strategy when it comes to community organizations and how he utilizes those to build relationships with people that he enjoys spending time with and ultimately accomplish the goals that he set for himself in his organization. Now, Brett with Whitney Bank will tell you how you can do that with your business too. So check out this conversation. Let's talk about difficult transactions. Courtney and I love talking about these things. We do them all the time. I feel like this week I've had like 20 conversations about.
That's all this market is right now is difficult transactions. I feel like.
Hey, look, we just dealt with a difficult deal, right? I mean, this one wasn't necessarily somebody who was trying to do something creative, but a process that we had to work through in order to get somebody to the closing table. And this one happened to be somebody that's near and dear to my heart. It's a VA veteran type of a loan. So talk about that deal and what made it so difficult.
Yeah, so that deal was very complex due to the client and his wife's circumstances. They were married a long time ago, divorced, remarried. So there was
life happens, right?
Yeah, life
Real
happens.
estate kind of gets involved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, they're moving from Florida. They had to sell their house in Florida and they were trying to buy a house in Louisiana. Well, so that process took time. But in VA loans, whenever you take a veteran and their spouse, and when you're buying a community property estate, you have to get a credit report from the non-purchasing spouse. So in this case would be his wife. So we had to factor in her debts into that, right? Well, I found a guideline in VA where you could exclude her debts, right? And I kept on bringing it up and it kept on saying, well, no, you can't do that. I'm like, well, hold on.
Then why does this guideline say that?
This guideline's clear as day. So I went back and forth with my underwriters for a while and, they were like, okay, well, this is new. Like we haven't.
No one's pushed back on this one for us.
We haven't really, we aren't as familiar with this, but it was great experience. I'm glad I did that because I think it set a new precedent, and we're going to go forward with this, move forward. But we kept on going back to the VA. The VA kept on saying, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do this. He's going to have to pay off another $40,000 of debt. I'm like, no, I'm not making my client pay another $40,000 worth of debt when the guidelines here. And they kept on coming back to me and saying, you can't do this. I'm like, well, the same reference part of the VA guidelines that you're referencing has this right here. So what am I missing? It's clear as day, black and white. We eventually get on the phone with the VA and we get the right person on the phone. They're like, oh yeah, you can do that. Save the client $40,000.
Wow.
Yeah. It took 3 weeks of me fighting and pushing back and not giving up, but I'm not going to give up on my client. I'm going to exhaust every option. And when I think it's right, no one's going to stop hearing from me.
So there's
underwriters, VA.
There's some principles here to kind of take away. Yeah. Number one, it was the fact that you knew the guidelines. Like you were reading the guidelines. A lot of people
don't
read. What is that thing? Americans don't read, right? Like it's like just one of those things where it's just like people they're lazy, right?
Yeah.
So one of the very first ways you showed up for your client was reading the guidelines and being like, oh, wait, hold on. What's this part here?
Yeah, Jerry, not to take any steam from you, but I felt like a lawyer presenting my case.
But that's a huge part, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's what the only what they teach you in law school. They teach you how to think and how to solve a problem like a lawyer, where to find the answers. They don't teach you everything. So in a way, you were practicing what you would have learned in law school. Like you don't say no for an answer. You try to find a solution. And you know how to think and where to find the answer. Just go find it.
Exactly.
So another principle we're going to pull out. So first of all, you were reading and being thorough. That's really what you were doing. Being attentive, being thorough, right? The second part of that is that you're shaking trees. You said 3 weeks that you were going back and forth with the underwriter, and you're shaking trees. You're like, no. I need you to tell me why this is like it says this. No one's giving me a clear answer, but you're out there and you're like, who do we need to talk to? Right? And then eventually getting to the right person. Because look, Lord knows, my running joke is you've got to talk to 5 to 7 people, especially within the government. So, VA. So if I'm going to the courthouse, whatever, I've got to talk to 5 to 7 people before I can find competency. Or
an average sum of the answers to say, okay, like these, out of these 5 to 7 people, I got this from enough people to be like, this is the right answer, while the rest of you need to go talk to somebody.
I mean, because it's hard to call in or walk into a building and be like, who's competent here? People don't take, that's not rapport building.
No.
So what I have found is you've got to talk to people and not take no for an answer. So that's the second thing that you did here that was huge.
Yeah, and if I took no for an answer, he'd be out another $40,000.
Yeah,
and that just wouldn't have been right.
And people don't understand that just because someone closes a deal for you doesn't mean it was done
The right way.
the right way or the most efficient way or things like that. There's not one way to do everything.
No.
And it also it's a reminder not all, all lenders created equal, right? Just because you got across the closing table is not the only metric for was this successful.
Yeah.
Right.
And to piggyback on that, there's a notion right now and a mindset with real estate professionals. How fast can I get the deal done? Like that. I mean, whether you're a real estate investor,
You saying right now like that's something?
I mean, I guess it's always been that way. But
Yeah.
I mean,
I was gonna say because is everyone just like trying to get some cash in their pocket?
well, probably so. I mean, but for every investor, can we get this done in 5 days? Can we get this done in 3 days? Can we get this done in 24 hours? With a lender, how fast can we get through underwriting? Title, how fast can you get title back? But at a certain point, we're supposed to be advocates for our clients and put
clients,
ourselves in the best position, right? So sometimes that doesn't mean going as fast as we can and taking the time to actually look at the situation and do the best thing for our clients.
And the listing agent on that deal was we had to push it back the deal because the sale of their house took a little longer. So we pushed it back.
Gave
we
you
only
some
pushed
time.
it back a week, and she was like, "Okay, well, can we close earlier?" I'm like, "Well, look, I really need to make sure we get all of our ducks in a row because I'm trying to help out this client. Like we cleared up a lot of the major hurdles. We're closing on this one way or the other, but there's this one big hurdle I need to do and figure out before we close."
Yeah.
And that's what I did. That's why I pushed back. She wasn't very happy about it. But I'm like, well, quite frankly, I don't care. I'm acting as a financial fiduciary, financial advisor to my client. Saving him $40,000 in the payoff.
Yeah.
So
And so I think that's
I don't mind
the-
ruffling some feathers over that.
Yeah.
Well, and that's huge. And I think you bring a point with people who are just always trying to be fast. Like anytime I've ever bought a deal within, a few days, I've had to grossly discount it because I knew there was going to be errors.
Yeah, 100%.
Speed is fun, but like it sounds fun and sexy, but like that is usually when there's the most errors. That's the highest risk. And like trust me, it's not fun for everyone involved. It's like usually where
Courtney, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a call on a Saturday. Hey, I'm with this client, who hasn't gotten pre-approved yet. We're writing an offer on this house. I'm like, well, great. Well, that's awesome.
Good
but,
luck.
I don't know what their financials are. Can you give me a pre-approval letter in the next 2 hours? I'm like, well, they need to do their stuff first, and I really need to see. I'm not going to guarantee you anything.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when that happens, it's never like a clean file where you can do it. It's always there's all these variable incomes and stuff. And how I work is I don't issue out that pre-qualification letter unless I know that thing's good as gold.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to vet through every option. If there's even like a little hurdle or hump, I'm going to talk to one of my underwriters on one of those calls we do. Right. Speed isn't always everything.
Mm-hmm.
I can move as fast as I want, but we can move fast. We can get to day 22 of the transaction and realize we never had anything from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So take the few extra days on the front end, vet it out, document properly, and the rest of the transaction is going to be smooth from that versus get all the way there. The last hurdle you have to clear, you can't clear it. Now everybody's emotionally spent. Everybody's upset, angry, and I'm never going to get to that point in transaction from how I conduct my business.
It's a good. There's a needle to thread there. I mean, it's a narrow path. I mean, if you're inefficient, it's one thing, but like if you're somebody who is on top of your game and you're trying really hard to make sure the process is seamless, and then something stands out that causes a delay, I think that there's just this feeling of
and I found that as long as you're communicating with all parties, be like, hey, look, I'm working through this right now, so just give me a couple more days. I'll follow up with you once I get the answers back. Make sure that we're good to go. So I found that threading that needle is just having an open line of communication, and everybody's more receptive to everything versus being a yes man and having to come back and say no later on.
Yeah, and then when people aren't communicating and things are, like that's when people start going off script. Like that's when people say, "Oh, well, this is not going to happen. This is not good." When someone's communicating, I'm willing to like slow down, take a little extra time or whatever.
Right.
So that's the communication part's key.